Hello, my name's Jo, and I make costumes and crafts under the name of Strawberry Attic. Back in the pandemic last year in 2020, the annual costume college was cancelled, and a group of like-minded individuals put together an online version of the event called COVID. This year a similar event is being held under the name of Cosy, and to celebrate it being 2021, they're asking its members to answer 21 simple questions about their crafting. And I thought, what better way for me to introduce myself to you all and what I plan to do with this channel. So I've got my questions here and off I go. Question 1. What is your favourite genre of costuming? I'd say probably historical costuming. It's so versatile as being used as a base for so many different avenues, whether that be cosplaying or going into Halloween costumes, and Halloween is my favourite time of year, but no, I do like trying out the different historical costumes. Question 2. What originally got me into costuming? I think probably the annual Halloween parties my parents used to host. We had a big double garage and it used to get closed off and converted into a grotto, and my parents would invite all my sister and my friends round for the evening where we'd party the night away. I've got vivid memories of being a spider. My mum had tied a pair of tights into my 8 legs, so every time I moved they moved with me. And another event that I used to do every year was at my primary school. We did an annual summer fete with a costume competition, and my nan would always make me the best costumes. One year I ended up going as Bertie Bassett and winning the first prize, so I was really proud that day. Question number 3. Who do I look up and who taught me my crafts? I'd say that's probably my nan. Her mum was a seamstress, and in fact I've still got the old Singer sewing machine that she used to own, but my nan from a very early age was making her own clothes, and all through my growing up she used to make us all sorts of different costumes. She'd turn a piece of clothing from her own wardrobe suddenly into a Cinderella dress, or I was playing nurse, dress up or fairy, but she always used to make the most fabulous fancy dress for us, and I think that really got me into it from quite an early age. Number 4. What are your favourite materials to work with? Day-to-day stuff, I'd probably say cotton. It's nice and easy to use, and it's also, being a natural fibre, it's nice and easy breathable, so I don't get too hot in the dresses that I make. But if I can afford it and push the budget up, I really like working with taffeta. You get such crisp seams with it, and I love the way the fabric rustles and sounds when you swoosh along in a big ball gown. Question number 5. Do I drape, draft or use commercial patterns? I was self-taught in dressmaking from about the age of 15 when I first got a new sewing machine for my birthday, and I used to just drape my own clothing, pinning it to myself, or when I eventually got a mannequin, pinning it to that, or I'd take patterns from clothes I had in my wardrobe and draw around them and create my own patterns, and so for the longest time I was self-drafting. So question 7, pins or pattern weights? I always tend to use pins. I probably shouldn't, because I'm often dropping them around the house and then getting told off for them appearing in someone's foot, but it is my preference to use pins. Number 8, what skill would you like to learn? I would love to learn tambour beading. I bought all the equipment a couple of years ago and I still haven't got round to teaching myself properly. Every time I try and use it, the coordination isn't quite there. But having watched Kathy Hayes' recreation of the peacock dress, I absolutely love the work that the people in India are doing recreating that with her, and it's certainly something I want to try my hand at. What is the most unconventional material you've used? Well, back in the 80s when I was a child, we used to have a TV programme called Blue Peter in the UK, and they often did craft projects that they encouraged you to try at home. And I vividly remember the episode where they were making catwalk fashion out of bin bags and carrier bags, and that evening I convinced my mum to let me use all the bin bags we had in the drawer, and I spent the evening stapling them round her and pinning her into this fabulous costume. It had a frothy white collar of white plastic, a slinky black figure of black bin bags and a long train at the back. Looking back, I think she probably got quite hot and sweaty in that, but she was very patient for letting me try, and that really gave me inspiration lesson growing up, being able to just remember to just putting pins in that plastic and turning it into something different. It really encouraged me with my sewing, so thanks, Mum. What's my biggest sewing and crafting pet peeve? I'd say probably getting the fit of garments right. Firstly, because I do most of my dressmaking when I'm on my own, trying to look at the back of garments and see how they hang can be really difficult, and when you're twisting round to look over your shoulder, the fabric doesn't hang right. So I'm hoping now I've got my new camera set up, I can actually do a bit of recording while I'm doing the fitting and be able to see how it hangs better. And the other big pet peeve is with all the historic clothing, you really need to start with your foundation garments. So once you get the stays or corset, creating the figure that you want to, and then you make the clothing around it. So I spent the first half of my pandemic making stays and corsets to give me the classic silhouettes of the different ages, and I shouldn't complain, but thankfully over the last couple of months I've actually managed to lose quite a bit of weight, which is fantastic for me, but it means all those corsets and stays that I worked so hard on now don't fit me, so I've got to start all over again, which is bit of a pity really, but there we go, it gives me something to use as content for this channel moving forward. So what skill did I learn in the last year that I'm most proud of? It probably seems a little bit strange to you that do so, but this year was the first year I ever actually started using commercial patterns, because I'd always just drafted and draped myself. I'd never actually run through a whole pattern, a commercial pattern from start to finish. So this year I conquered my fear, realised they're not as scary as I had in the back of my head, and I've actually started making things using commercial patterns, so I'm really chuffed with that, and it does just open up a new world of sewing in front of me. Occasionally there's been garments that I'd really like to try, and trying to figure out the logistics of how that fabric goes together, but now I can actually see it on a commercial pattern. It's going to make it a lot easier, so look out world, there's nothing going to stop me now. How has the pandemic changed how you sew? I think the biggest thing for me is it's opened up a new world through the YouTube really. Before, when I was making my own clothing, I didn't really have many big occasions where I could really go to town with something fantastical. Every year I did used to go to a ball in the summer and the winter, hosted by a group of shoe fanatics. We're all big fans of the shoe brand Irregular Choice, and every year we'd meet up in the Midlands and get together. One year I went as a tree, making all intricate bark on my dress, and in fact I used that piece as my competition entry for the Foundations Reveal competition this year. And then the winter, so last winter just before COVID, I'd made myself a big ball gown of black tulle and intricately threaded through lots of fibre optic lights, and then had some big discs of metallic fabric of the different planets that I sewed onto the dress. So come the evening, when the lights went out and I flicked my lights on, I twinkled like the universe, and I absolutely love swanning around in that ball gown. So yeah, the pandemic has opened up to make me realise that you don't have to wait for these big occasions. You can just sew because you love sewing, and yeah, I'm really enjoying now. I've made all sorts of costumes and outfits that I'm never probably going to leave the house in, but it's really helped my skills, brushed them up and taught me so much more, and I'm making them just because I love them now, rather than keep telling myself that it's a waste and I shouldn't be making them. So it's really opened my eyes up and got me quite excited, which is why I've started to think about sharing some of these projects with you now. Okay, so number 13, what era or genre would I still like to make a costume of? I would love, my absolute goal is to try a robe à la Francais, one of the sack back dresses. ever since seeing Angela Clayton on her channel making one, I just fell in love with that dress. But because I was self-drafting then, I couldn't work out how to get that sack hanging so nicely and still keep a figure. So yeah, seeing her create that, and now I've started to find patterns for it. So I've got one of the JP Ryan patterns to give a go to. So I'm definitely going to give that a try. I'm probably going to do a dummy run first, and then once I've mastered it, I'm going to try one. My goal piece is to have all the embroidery down the front and some flowers made out of ribbons adorning the dress. And so yeah, that is my goal piece, I think. I'm really looking forward to trying. So question 14, what is the best sewing tool that you've ever invested in? Actually, it's this, and it's the worst tool I ever bought for my pets. I bought this for my dogs. They don't like having their nails trimmed or their claws trimmed. So I bought this, and it's a little, I don't know if you can see, it's a little drill type implement that grinds down their nails. Every time I get it out in front of the dogs, they run a mile. So we never actually got to try it on them, but it has been fantastic with all the corset and stay making I've been doing using this synthetic whalebone. It's been fantastic for just grinding those ends down of the bones. And so yes, my top tip to making corsets and stays, if you're using plastic or synthetic whalebone, is to get a dog trimmer. It's been brilliant. Question 15. What are my plans moving forward? Well, hopefully in the next 12 months, excuse me, somebody's calling. Sorry, I stupidly tried to get myself locked in a room without her, and that's not going to happen. Go on, off you go then. Go back on your bed. He's a good girl. On your bed. No, on your bed. I'm busy. Good girl. So, yes, as I was saying, so what are my plans moving forward? Well, for the last 12 months during the COVID pandemic, I have spent all my time sitting at my dining table sewing. And slowly my collection of fabric has grown and grown and grown, and it's starting to take over the house. So I think the plan is within the next 12 months is to find myself a designated sewing area in the house. And that means that I'll be able to record a little bit more. There's so many of my projects I'd really like to be able to share what I'm doing, and hopefully people will be interested watching. So the plans is to start recording some of the projects that I'm doing, and to get myself locked up in my own little heaven doing all the crafting. So yes, so question 16, do I use scissors or rotary blade? I've tried to use a rotary blade, and quite frankly I'm dangerous with it. For some reason I try, when I'm rolling it, I try to put my finger on the top to get more weight into it, and it's going to end in tears. So I'm too dangerous to use a rotary blade. So scissors for me. Do I have any sewing assistants? Well, yes, you've just seen one. I have little Ivy, who is an absolute pest. She is a chalky poodle and Yorkie, no, Chihuahua poodle and Yorkie mix. She is a little madam. She's a little bit yappy. We're going to try and sort that. And she does what she wants when she wants and doesn't care about the consequences. And then I've got my camera shy Willow. She is a German Shepherd Collie cross, and she is the complete opposite of Ivy. She's very, very quiet. She's camera shy, and her goal in life is just to please, and she's convinced anyone who ever comes to our house is there just to give her attention and tummy rubs. So yeah, two very different pets, but yes, they are always by my side. Number 18, do I sew over my pins or take them out as I go? I think probably I've seen Final Destination a few too many times, and am now paranoid about accidents waiting to happen, and I'm convinced that one day I'm going to sew over a pin, my sewing machine needle will snap, flick up in my eye, and that will end my sewing career. So because of this, I always take my pins out. When I'm sewing, do I sew barefoot, socks or shoes on the pedal? I'm just like my mum on this. I always have to sew with a bare foot. Shoes, absolutely no chance. I've tried it with socks and it just doesn't work. So I will always have one bare foot when I'm sewing. So if it's really cold, I'll have one sock on and one sock off, which makes quite entertaining viewing when I try and walk across the room, because it completely throws my balance for some reason and I start crashing into the furniture. But yes, always with a bare foot for me. Question number 20, tea, coffee or hot chocolate? I do like a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate, but I'm a little teapot. I think that's probably part of the Brit in me, and I like my tea as a builder's tea. So make it with boiling water, get it really, really strong, just a dash of milk, and that's the perfect brew for me. And getting away with it, I'll probably have 20 or so cups a day. So yes, I'm always going to be a little teapot. And then lastly, question number 21, what do I watch or listen to while I sew? I'm a big murder buff. I love watching murder things, or listening to murder podcasts. I'm currently going through the back catalogue of Bailey Sarian's Murder Mystery Mayhem, or Murder Mystery Makeup video channel, and also her new podcast that she's doing. And I'm a big fan of the podcast The History Dweebs. They take a light-hearted look on the dark side of history. It's definitely adults listening, as they are very funny and quite often a little bit crude, but they do entertain me. So most of my sewing I'm chuckling along to them, or occasionally I'll pop some music on and completely forget what I'm doing and I'll be bopping away at the sewing machine. So yes, always have to have something to listen to, though I don't do silence very well, as you probably guessed with the amount I've spoken today. So anyway, yes, that's my 21 questions. Thank you ever so much for joining me today and learning a little bit more about me. And as I say, in the future, I've got a number of projects I'd really like to share with you that I'm quite excited about. So if you've enjoyed watching today's video, it'd be really helpful if you give this one a like, and also subscribe to my channel, as I hope in the next weeks and months I'll be uploading a few more videos for you all to watch. So goodbye from me and goodbye from Ivy, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thank you. Get off. Yeah. Hello. Hello.